Rick Noel here again. I hope you're having a good time. It's been one heck of a weekend for all of us, and we've been having a great time. Hope you have too. Today we have James Lucarelli from Red Digital Cinema coming to join us. And as you folks know, Red Digital is a phenomenal piece of equipment. And James is one of those guys that knows every single thing about it and will dissect it for us. So what I would like to be able to do is just give you a little bit of chat time. On the right-hand side, you can see where you can put a chat. We like to know where you're coming from, if you don't mind, whether you're from Monkakilo or Manila or wherever you are, let us know. It's kind of nice for us to see. And James will be able to see it, and we'll certainly be able to take any of your questions. We look forward to seeing anything from where you're from. And I want to hand it over to James and have a good workshop. Thank you so much, James. Take care.
Aloha, everyone. Can I get a quick thumbs up if everyone can hear and see me? Thumbs up. Thanks, Matt. Hopefully we were able to see that great reel that was all shot on the Komodo. And if you haven't seen the camera, I'm going to go ahead and hold it up for you right now. This is the incredible Komodo ST. And I do say ST because I'm a big Star Wars fan. And that ST does stand for the troopers that come when it's rainy and cloudy like it is right now here in Southern California. And if anyone has not seen this yet, this is an incredible new offering from us here at Red. And for any photographers, this has some great new features that we'll go ahead and talk about here. And yes, great audio and great visual. Double AV, thanks. Thank you, Zach. Now let's go ahead and jump right into it. And I'm gonna go ahead and make sure you guys can see the presentation materials here. And we're gonna go ahead and start with the reel. Oh. And what we are looking at now is the Komodo reel. And let me know if you guys are hearing audio that goes along with this video. Great. Now what you're seeing here is the incredible dynamic range with the Komodo camera. Being able to change the ISO either in camera or after the fact. The key thing with red code or red raw footage, it's never baked in. Now I'm not going to gab through the whole video here, but I will point out a couple of key features. What you're seeing there is the RF to EF style mount. And a couple different options that you can select in camera with red raw R3D codec. Now for photographers out there, or anyone that's followed Red before, what you're going to see here is a side-by-side comparison of stabilized versus unstabilized. And then the key thing there is that is a flash, and we are now able to work with strobes because Komodo does have a native global shutter. So things like strobes and photography and fast-moving things like these fireworks, you're going to see less warping and bending with fast-moving objects. You're going to see another key example of that here with Gabriel Mann, who is going to be taking the Komodo here into a very fast handheld shot. And for anyone that is handheld, maybe working with a gimbal, and then later needs to have a tack sharp looking image for visual effects or for stills, you're going to see a great representation of this here. Notice here as he spins, I'm not going to be able to pause it, but when you pause, or maybe those helicopter blades, they are straight because this does have a global shutter. Now I know Zach's getting excited about this. Komodo does feature a 4" by 4" by 4" body, pretty much a Rubik's Cube, right around 2.1 pounds. And you can see a Noah Alani here putting that in the salty water housing. And this is what we would consider a splash housing, maybe not something as deep as the Deep Komodo, which is something that is offered by Gates. Both water housings are on the Red Approved third-party page, and I have used this system here and it's quite incredible. And I do want to shout out to Matt over at Salty Housings. Very fortunate to work with the great systems. Once again, just a quick shout out here to Jay and Clay from our propaganda team. They shot all of this incredible footage from a Komodo, drone footage, the handheld footage, the drone gimbal, everything else, all of that because of the very light Komodo camera. Thank you, Matt, for the chat there and the link to the third-party accessories. All right. Well, thanks so much for sitting through that first initial video. I do want to point that everything you saw there was shot on one of these Komodo cameras. And I do want to point out that the Komodo is one of our newest, smallest form factor cameras. If you do have one of our DSMC2 cameras here, I'm going to go ahead and hold one of these up. Now, I do own one of these cameras, but you can kind of see just by doing a quick side-by-side here that what is in my right hand right here starts off at right around 3.3, 3.4 pounds. This camera starts off at right around 2 pounds. Fully functional, what I'm holding here in my hands, right around 6 pounds. And if I go ahead and see if I can do it without pulling out my microphone, take my little Rode microphone here and attach it on the side, or perhaps a Deity 3.5 based mic, I can go ahead and have audio going directly into my camera. And as you can see it here on my levels, you can see that wirelessly transmitting to the RED Control app as well. So pretty cool stuff. And yep, thank you for letting us know there, and the moderators in the chat, that if you want to go ahead and ask any questions, we're going to continue to pile those as we go on through. And I do want to say that we do have a little bit of a presentation here. I hope that it's not death by PowerPoint. And yep, thank you for the link there down at the bottom. And we're going to go through some presentation here. We will get hands-on with the Komodo, and we'll handle all those questions as they come in. Thank you so much. All right off the bat, you should see Komodo product introduction. Now, as I grab those two cameras in my hand, both, excuse me, the Komodo that was to my left, the DSMC2 Gemini that I'm pointing at, or the, excuse me, the Monstro camera that is right over here to my left, all of these camera systems are what RED is currently offering. And right now we're going to talk about the Komodo first. Now, Komodo, the very first thing that comes up, and let's see if I can hide that. And I can't make that go down, but I'll just click on to the next slide. Right off the bat, the question comes up, is Komodo a camera? Is it a sensor? I understand the confusion there because our previous cameras had maybe a different camera would come out, whether it was DSMC or DSMC2, or maybe a Ranger camera system. And we had multiple sensors that would go into that camera. With Komodo, it is a all-in-one system. It is a very, very small form factor system. But the nice thing about it here is it does have such native features as that global shutter we were talking about. So great for photographers, great for anyone that wants to be handheld, or maybe anyone that needs to shoot fast-moving objects like we were talking about. Now, you don't quite have as many frames per second as your previous RED camera systems, but with a all-in-one camera system that has now a global shutter and such great things as phase detection autofocus, and utilizes such great things as RED code, which is RED's ability to shoot RAW, 16-bit RAW, and also combine that with that global shutter to have 16 stops of dynamic range. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but that ability to shoot that bright, and that dark like my t-shirt, and have it all still be raw and controllable and be manageable within your file system is really the flexibility of RED code. Now, I do want to point out that what you're seeing over there is an antenna on the left, and Komodo does have an expandable wireless capabilities. It is great for live streaming, great for wireless monitoring, or maybe you're just going to put that Komodo in a very tight place like that housing we were seeing earlier and still be able to go ahead and monitor or make some changes. The other thing I want to point out is what you are seeing is a RF style mount or an RF mechanical mount, meaning that if you do own any Canon RF lenses currently as it exists right now, Komodo won't electronically communicate with those RF lenses. Now, you and I am all very hopeful that we are going to get some support with the Komodo and RF lenses, and I am hopeful that in sometime Q1, Sherrod has hinted that we should get some support here, and we're going to hope for that in 2021. Do know, be patient, because we are working very hard on that. Now, I want to point out that in addition to the global shutter, RED's image quality that RED has been known for, this wireless connectivity, which is really cool, and you can see it over here with my apps in the cameras that you're seeing here live to my left, you now also have the ability to shoot 6K. And I know what some of you are thinking, my clients only want 4K, my clients only want 2K, but typically with REDs, as the angle you're seeing me right now, if I was shooting 4K and the client only wanted 2K, you might window in on the sensor. With Komodo, you can shoot 6K and then deliver 4K or 2K or 1080 and not have to window in on that gorgeous 6K sensor. We'll talk about more of your options on how you can go ahead and do that. Now, what you're seeing at the bottom might be more of a production style rig of a Komodo that is currently on set. Maybe it's the new Jurassic World, maybe it's the new Matrix. This camera is currently on movie features today, and this is not something that we can say with some of our other camera systems or some of the competitor camera systems that oftentimes are compared with Komodo. Now, RED has always very much had cinema in our backbone, and now we have a camera system that is small enough and light enough, but can still utilize the same gorgeous cinema lenses that oftentimes are heavier and more expensive, but carry the look that the feature or the director, the DP needs to move forward. Now, I'd love to work with some gorgeous Zeiss Supreme Primes like I see here at the bottom, but maybe I don't have the backpack, the time, the budget, or the need to shoot on these gorgeous lenses. Maybe we are shooting with something a little bit more lightweight and handheld. And what you're seeing at the top here is that same Komodo, and I know what you're seeing. Some of these are white, some of these are black or different colors. Do note that those are just cosmetic, and really you shouldn't see any difference in performance between the Komodos. The key thing that I want to take away here is that it is that 4" by 4" by 4" box. So for gimbal operators, lightweight shooters, people that are trying to get your rig really small, that is a very, very small camera system. Great for, like I said, trap cameras, point of view rigs. I don't want to advocate selfie sticks, but really you could do it if you needed to, and it's a very lightweight camera. Now, what you're going to see on the left is a frozen frame or a frozen representation of what a rolling shutter might see during something with movement. Now, I pointed out that I'm shooting into a DSMC2 Gemini camera right now, which also has a rolling shutter. And if I wanted to give you some fast movement, you might see some jello-y effect with my fingers. That is an artifact of the rolling shutter, or essentially when things are moving very fast, you will get a warping or bending effect. Now, rolling shutters did allow for such great things like high sensitivity or great dynamic range, the ability to shoot bright brights and then dark darks. But that dynamic range was something that if you did shoot strobes or fast moving objects, you would notice some warping or bending. Now, a global shutter is a true on and off of the shutter, or a true global shutter or global exposure of the shutter. But the trade-off is maybe your camera system that might have had 14 stops of dynamic range may only have like 9 or 10. That inability to super saturate your sensor or progressively scan and allow for that that extreme sensitivity was a trade-off with global shutters. Now, you did have global shutters or the ability to work with strobes or things that were moving, did freeze and did have less skewing and warping, but remember, you did typically trade off in sensitivity. With Komodo, that is not the case. Here, if you've never seen one of these charts before, you typically don't count this square right here, and most wouldn't count these rectangles over here, but essentially each one of these squares or rectangles is one stop of dynamic range. Now, really, if you want to count all the way across, that's 16 stops of dynamic range coming from a global shutter camera system, all at one of the most affordable and entertainable prices that RED's ever been able to have. Now, 16 stops is also on par with our other camera systems, which makes Komodo the ability to be that same camera that can either be your A camera, your B camera, your C camera, because it does have that same light sensitivity. Now, what I'm showing you here is a rolling, a resolution chart. And remember that RED has always had photography as a core part of our backbone. And I know that some of us like to do video jobs, or some of us do video jobs, and some of us do photography jobs, and oftentimes they can blend. With RED and with all of our camera systems, you have the ability to take photos with every single frame. I'm holding up a representation right here, and I'll show you some other examples, but essentially every single frame is not a frame grab. It is essentially a raw TIFF, JPEG, PNG, or whatever file you want. And I do want to point out that if we're shooting 6K, that's about a 20 megapixel still. And if your client is asking for 4K, that's around an 8 megapixel still, or about half the resolution of 6K. Not the same thing as saying 6K plus 6K is kind of just like a 2K away. Notice that 2K is only 2 megapixels. Now, I do have camera systems here from RED that we do offer that are 8K, and 8K does offer 35 megapixels, but really we're talking about Komodo first, and we can talk about all of RED's other sensors and camera systems towards the end. Now, when I shoot 6K, it's also oftentimes maybe so I can finish in 4, or stabilize because I'm maybe walking through a scene, or maybe if we look at this shot below, maybe we didn't have rights to show something down that corner. Or maybe like I was saying earlier, maybe we're walking and we later want to stabilize. That is why you would want to maybe shoot 6K in camera and then use something like a crane, gimbal, maybe a steady cam to go ahead and stabilize your shot both physically and then later bring it in to post what you're seeing here. Now, I'm not advocating always punching in on your shot, but that ability to shoot 20 megapixels or 6K and then later finish in 4K or 9 megapixels means I have twice the resolution to do so. And remember, if I go back one slide, if your customers are still asking for 1080 or 720, remember that 6K is 10 times that resolution. Now, I know what some might be thinking, RED files have to be massive if they're both raw and this much larger in resolution, but really that's where RED code comes into play. And RED code is RED's proprietary raw form of compression that allows us to really go ahead and, as you're seeing right here, this is a representation of RED CineX on the right. Now, I'll show you guys afterwards when we take some questions, but you can download RED CineX for free and download some RED clips from red.com. And really, if you're either a photographer, videographer, aspiring cinematographer, RED CineX is a great place to start because you can create your own look, you can change the color, temperature, and ISO, and really you can push and pull your files to get the creative look that you want. And the beautiful thing about Komodo is right off the bat, you can bring that right here into RED CineX, our free color program, or take it right into Premiere, Resolve, Final Cut, or Avid. Now, those are great video editing cinema programs, but maybe you just want to do a photo program, and that's where RED CineX comes in, because from there I can create TIFFs, JPEGs, PNGs, and go directly into Lightroom, Image One, or Phase One, or any of my image capturing software. Now, on the left, what you're seeing is what I might shoot directly out of my RED camera. And if anyone ever shot film before, think of REDs as a digital way to always be shooting an ISO 800 film stock. Really, ISO is never baked in with RED, so I might shoot ISO in camera and then pull it down or bring it down a stop in brightness from 800 to 400 ISO, and then maybe from 400 to 250. What I essentially did there was bring it down by a stop and a half, and you're allowing me to still have all of that beautiful skin tone and have highlight protection as well as low light protection without having any noise or loss of my shot. This is also great for creative choices. Wondering if you, hey, Vegan Delight, keep asking those questions. I'll see them come up there in the chat. But what I'm showing you right here is a way that you could essentially have a documentary look in the dressing room here where you really like the natural tungsten look. And then later we talk to Rick, and Rick decides, let's bring that up a stop or half a stop from 800 to 1,000. We later re-white balance. And remember, oftentimes clients are looking for the look. And notice how the lights might be medium highlight roll off, or you can kind of see the light bulbs here. I can then go for a more of a softer look, and really being able to change the way something looks is not something you can do with some of your other forms of recording that aren't necessarily raw. Yeah, wondering of the quality of the pics. We'll show you some examples afterwards, and really you can download them from red.com. But if you know about RAW, it does depend on your bit depth. And I'll show you some slides at the end here. But with RED RAW, it is actually 16-bit RAW. So it's not 8-bit, 10-bit, 12-bit. We are doing with 16-bit RAW. And with Komodo, you do have the ability to select high quality, medium quality, or low quality. I like to think of this of what is my deliverable. If it's something that's going to be on a 90-foot screen, maybe something that is going to be on a book like I'm holding up here, something I do want to keep forever, I would shoot at the highest quality, but maybe this is something for a 1080 deliverable, something for online, where really low quality might give you the most efficient results. Once again, all would still be raw, and really, I like to use it to maximize my recording time. Great question, and thank you. We're going to keep on going on, and I'll show you some slides about that coming up here in just a sec. Now, oftentimes when I'm either pre-visualizing with my clients or maybe talking about that look that we want to deliver, some might fall in love with more of a crushed look or something more finished like you see on the left, more contrasty and harder on our roll-off, or my colorists like something a little bit more softer on the palette like on the right. The good news is none of this is baked in, and really this allows me to A and B it, or maybe C and D it, or change it as many times as we want, and none of that is truly baked in. Now, I do want to point out here, this is another great feature with Komodo. Notice Clay here is shooting it handheld, which is something that a global shutter really benefits from. And he's also utilizing the SDI out. So if anyone does need to record two different files at the same time, like maybe RAW and camera or ProRes and camera, you can also, you can also record out of the SDI out, and it is something that is recorded to that 422, so it is not the full 16-bit RAW. So remember, we were asking about quality here. Coming out of the SDI is not the same thing as recording to RED code. It is something that would be recording to ProRes, and notice that you would be limited to either 4K, 2K, or 1080, and your frame rates would be limited to 60 frames per second. The nice benefit here, remember, is I can still shoot 6K and have multiple outputs out that aren't scaled or punched in. So really great function here with the Komodo. Now, I want to talk about the Komodo's ability to have that RF mechanical mount, and we'll show it more here with the hands-on portion. But really, if we're all shooting outside, like I know we like to do sometimes that cloud goes away and you need to darken that shot or brighten it back up. I'm actually doing that right here with a little wheel, and that's called ND, or variable ND, or variable neutral density. We now have that built directly into the mount, and you're seeing options for both PL for our cinema heavier manual lenses, or RF to EF for our electronic focusing lenses, like my Canons, my Sigmas, my Tokinas. And once again, we do have PL options here if you don't require ND, or that amount of ND built directly in the mount. The nice benefit here is really this is behind the lens and in between the sensor. And if we change lenses from one of those multiple manufacturers like I talked about, I don't have to go find a different filter tray or a different ND to put on the back of the lens. Here are some other options for both Leica, and here are the options where you can see that removable tray. And do know if you do get the one with built-in ND, I do also recommend the clear tray, just because there are those situations where you are shooting inside like I am right now. And I would like to remove that tray altogether and not have that ND built in. And you can see I just reached over and grabbed it right now, and as I hold it up here, you can see how that darkens and lightens, but at a certain point, it's not going to get much brighter, and that's where you could have a clear one or a full spectrum tray, and you are going to see other third-party filters from Breakthrough and other third parties, great options for polarizers and things like that. The Komodo does run off of 7.4 batteries. These are the Canon BP batteries. Some of you may already have them in your bags from your Canon C200 models. Now, I do want to point out these are a much smaller, more efficient battery than our larger 11.4, 17.4 bricks, and I can't even grab one right here. But do notice that the camera does allow for up to 17 volts, which really is beneficial, because if you do have some of those existing batteries, you can use something like a P-tap, or maybe the third-party plates that are approved from that link we saw there from Matthew, from either Core or Wooden, which would allow you to use your V-mount batteries and provide the camera maybe not more than 17 volts, so don't use a 24-volt battery, but it would allow you to use your Red bricks or your Core batteries or something like that, and then you would have additional power to then provide to your P-tap, your third-party monitor, or maybe your XLR battery, or your XLR microphones that do require additional power. Now, another great part about the Komodo is this does have dual slots. So really, if the left battery starts dying, it will automatically swap to the right. And if we did not bring the charger with us, we can leave this switch to off, and the camera will charge overnight. It does require about 8 hours, but if I can charge both of my batteries and keep the bag extra light but not have to bring another charger, another great option. I do want to point out that there is just the EXT port on the back here, the SDI out, and then the DC power in. So not a lot of additional ports on the back of the Komodo, and that's where we're going to use things like our RED expander module like I'm touching here, and we can get hands-on with later in case anyone does have to plug into some of those bigger third-party devices and play with the other cameras. Now, these are some RED approved media or some CFast cards that are already approved to work with Komodo. And this is a really key thing because oftentimes RED was something that maybe you might have thought about, but the media or third-party accessories were very expensive. Now we're using CFast 2.0 media, so much more readily available, something you might already own or exist. And this is something that is very exciting for us here at RED. And if you don't have any of these 4 cards, do know that RED does offer a Angelbird co-branded card. It looks very similar to this one here. And you will want to find cards that can meter match that 280 megabytes or greater write speed. Now, this is a great slide to hold on for just a second here, and we'll open it up in Q&A in just a sec. But you already saw me hold up a DSMC2 camera, and if I reach down, pardon my grip here, this is a Ranger camera. Now, if you notice, they're very similar if I look at them from profile, and if I start to spin them to the side, you can see how this modular camera in my left hand could very easily start to grow and be as large as this Ranger camera system. Now, I'm getting my workout holding this 7-pound body, but I do have a 3-pound body option here that I could easily grow to fit this same profile, but sometimes I need something even smaller, and that's where that Komodo fits in. Now, I can't juggle all 3 cameras at once, and really I'm not trying to compete these cameras against themselves. I'm really offering options. Now, if we needed to shoot 6K, 24 frames per second, maybe up to 40 frames per second, we wanted to shoot RAW and ProRes, RAW or ProRes, let me correct myself, RAW or ProRes, and then also utilize RED's industry accepted RED code with RED R3D LUTs for that creative look or flexibility. Do note that all 3 of these cameras could do that. Let me say that again. 6K, 24 to 40 frames per second, RAW, RED LUTs, RED code, or ProRes, all 3 of these cameras could do that. But do note that if maybe your requirements are to shoot 8K because we need that visual effects, or we need 8K for stabilization, or maybe you need the benefit of phase detection autofocus, or a global shutter because this is a VFX heavy shoot, do note there are going to be benefits where one camera can win out over the other, but these are complementary cameras. And I like it too because oftentimes Komodo might be the first camera that, for us that are students or maybe just getting into RED, the Komodo could be the first camera that could be your camera to get into RED, and then maybe shoot with some of our other camera systems. The key thing here is you're going to have that same dynamic range, that same RED RAW ability. You just might not have the same high frame rates or the dual record or the interchangeable OLPFs that these 2 camera systems are known for. Now, we can take more questions at the end about the DSMC2 or digital still motion camera or the Ranger camera system towards the end. Now, here are the specs of Komodo, and I don't want to bore anyone with specs. We can see these on red.com. And with that, let's get hands-on. And I do want to point out that thank you all for sitting through here. I am holding up the Komodo once again. This is the SDI screen here at the top. This is the LCD touchscreen built directly into the camera. And if I hold up either an Android or iOS device here, notice that I am seeing a live feed coming directly out of the camera going to my Apple device, Android device, or anything that does pick up an internet signal. So really key feature there with the Komodo camera system. Getting through that first initial part there, and if we have any questions, I'm going to ask that Rick or Zach or Matthew go ahead and feed those over to me now. I'd love to take some of those questions as we go. And do note I have the Komodo right over here. I have both of the apps currently up, and we can talk a little bit about the camera systems or maybe the third-party accessories. I really have wondering about the quality of the pics you can get off of the Komodo. Yeah, so these are pics that are used for magazine covers, billboards. I'm holding up a 10 by 10 book here. And once again, all of these, or a lot of these, were taken from RED cameras. Now, once again, there are only up to 20 megapixels with 6K. It is 16-bit RAW. And once again, you do have the ability to shoot with RED code. And with Komodo, it's been optimized between high quality, medium quality, and low quality. And if you allow me to show you my desktop here, I can pull up RED Cine X here. And give me 1 second here to just make the switch. And I'm going to be showing you guys my screen here. And Matthew, go ahead and chat me here if you guys lose this on your end. But what you're seeing here is a breakout of RED Cine X. And this looks like a little time lapse that I did in Waikiki last time I was fortunate enough to be there. And do notice I am shooting ISO 12,800 because this was very late at night. Now, once again, I can take the ISO and change that, and that is the ability of RED to have that same raw flexibility. But do notice that if I wanted to come over here to a shot like this, do notice that this is 8K, and I can, once again, do that same amount of raw. And if I wanted to go ahead and just take a quick little snapshot there, I just took a still and exported that to my desktop here. And I do have the option here as well to change my output to not just a TIFF, to a JPEG, or to a DPX. So these are the different outputs that I can choose. And the first one was a TIFF. Let's now do a JPEG. And I just went over here and did a JPEG. And I also did a RAW. Now let's go to my folders here, to my desktop. And what you're seeing here is there is the TIFF. And we all know TIFF is what we should be delivering for our high quality, maybe for that magazine deliverable, that finishing file. There is the JPEG. That is something we can maybe fit 2 or 3 on an email. And remember the RAW. Remember how I was telling you the flexibility of RED RAW. That is the RAW file, and this is the metadata. If you add those two up, that's 5 megabytes. That is 1/2 the size of the JPEG, and that's 1/20th the size of the TIFF. And I know your question was about quality. So let's go ahead and click on this TIFF file here. And I had a new laptop here, so bear with me here if it opens up. And it does look like it does open up. Now this is the 200 megabyte file here. And if I hold down Control, I believe we can look in here. And what you're actually seeing here is number 94 in that football player's eye from about 12 feet away. And that's the quality that you can get out of some of the stills. And I don't like using the term frame grab because that implies video or screen resolution. Remember, we're talking about either JPEGs, TIFFs, or RAW files here. And once again, you saw where I can choose that quality. I do want to share my desktop one more time here because really I don't think we're going to have the full time to go through it all here. But if I share you my desktop here one more time, I know Matt talked about the third-party accessories. You can find this right here on red.com. But if you go to our YouTube page, there's some really cool marketing videos like we saw at the beginning. But I'm pointing you here to the Red Solitary series. And more specifically, if you come over here, there is one that I did specifically for stills. And it's right here called Red Stills for Motion. Now, go ahead and watch this at your leisure. But it shows how you can use all of our cameras to essentially shoot not just RAW, like 8-bit or 10-bit RAW, but 16-bit RAW photos that are essentially up to 40 per second with that 6K camera. Really great stuff. And I don't want to take away from the streamer on here because you can learn at your own pace here. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the share so we don't see that inception effect of going down my desktop. Great question there on the stills. Do note that all of those videos are completely free, and the last 3 of them were focused specifically on Komodo. But remember, when it comes to quality, all of the cameras, the Komodo, the DSMC2, or the Ranger camera systems all record to RED code, which is RED's 16-bit all raw color, raw form of color management within our camera systems. Great question. Now, if you guys will give me one more second here, I think that one of the great things about the Komodo, and especially today in the interconnected world where we constantly have to be worried about how do we get people in the same room and still be respectful and still be able to keep that social distancing, what I'm going ahead and doing here is I'm switching my camera from ad hoc mode, or essentially hotspotting, to be on the same Wi-Fi network that I'm in right now. Now, once I switch this over and I see the little confirmation over here, excuse me, over here on to my left, I'm going to be able to show you a really great way to be able to either control your RED camera or maybe allow others to control your camera as well. So please allow me to share my desktop one more time here, and I appreciate you bouncing in and out with me here. And what you're going to go ahead here is see my desktop here, and you can see some more of those solitary videos like we were talking about here. Here is the full catalog of all of the videos we were talking about. And if I just wanted to come over here and open up a brand new browser and type in a 192.165 or 168, essentially the IP address of the camera here, notice what I'm seeing here is a live image coming directly out of my Komodo to my left. That's pretty impressive because I can also come over here to the color correction tab and maybe turn off the R3D LUT and maybe turn it to a black and white LUT, or maybe come over here to the lens control tab and essentially be able to focus my camera system, all because I'm on the Wi-Fi. And if I did want to maybe not give up this much control, maybe I just wanted to give Matthew, who's monitoring, the ability to monitor, I can type in a quick semicolon 9090, and notice what I have here. That's a live image coming directly out of my camera. And I don't want to make anyone sick here, but if I go ahead and pull up the Komodo and wave to you all, I am now live streaming. Let's get the focus a little bit better here. I'm now handheld live streaming with my Komodo, giving you guys a live view. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share because I don't want to make anyone sick here. And what you should be seeing was a live image coming directly out of my Komodo, and there is no cables plugged into that live stream. So hopefully that worked and you guys are able to see everything. And that is something that if we do a little bit of coordination beforehand, notice I could have asked you guys to turn on that R3D LUT, and notice we can see we do have that black and white look going on right here. That is something where I could ask my assistant to help me out and maybe remove that so I don't have the LUT going on at the same time. Really cool feature right there. Now, if you notice, my app is no longer connected, and all you have to do to connect to the camera is pretty much go to your Wi-Fi here, make sure you're on the same Wi-Fi, and once I'm on the same Wi-Fi, I go ahead and open up the completely free RED Control app. I can go ahead and see the camera right there, and that's where I could see multiple cameras. And with a 5-button camera that, once again, is live, and you're seeing that as that's going live on all 3 of those cameras, do note that I can come back over here, turn off that black and white LUT, so now everything's in color. And maybe I'm going to ask Rick to focus control my camera, and Rick could focus the camera, or maybe I could ask Zach to be the iris control of my camera, and now he's opening and closing the aperture of my camera, and you're seeing all that there happen live. And all of this is completely free with the Komodo camera system because of that RED Control Protocol 2. And this is something that if we're not in a Wi-Fi environment, remember, we can ad hoc or essentially hotspot off the camera and get all of this same wireless control, all because of this completely free RED app called RED Control, and it's completely customizable, and it's a great option here. Yeah, I really like the app. I have the camera right here, and it is in a really nice configuration where I do have the SDI screen as well as the LCD, but sometimes I'm going on to my gimbal and I really just want to be able to detach this cable and then go ahead and take my phone right here. And once again, I'm going to try and set the camera down so I don't make anyone sick. And notice that I have the app and the live stream coming directly out of the camera. I can tap right here, make it go full screen, then maybe put it in airplane mode so it's not falling off of control. And if I was able to mount this with just a little C-clamp, essentially there is my screen, my RED phone, or my RED phone, my iPhone, whatever phone you want. And notice there's no cables on that. So if this is on my gimbal, I don't have anything fighting with my gimbal, causing it to vibrate or get upset with me because I have additional cables pulling from the system. Really, really nice. And that does work with anything that can connect to the internet. So not just Android, iPhone, PC, Mac, anything like you saw there. I was just able to do that because I was on the same Wi-Fi. Pretty cool stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and I think we saw a video at the beginning, so that was a good time to just kind of remind everyone that every single one of those videos, and I'm going to show you guys my desktop one more time. Share desktop. So all of the videos that you're seeing on the Solitary series or red.com or these videos here, you can come right back here to red.com, come down here to the Learn section. And remember what I was talking about of try for yourself, or maybe see if you wanted to see some of that quality for yourself. I definitely encourage you all, come right in here, download some of these 8K, 5K, 6K files. I know what you think. 8K sounds massive, or these files have to be really big, but notice that we do have red code of 10:1 or 12:1, and that's the variable red compression that does allow you to change your file size for your deliverable. And really, if you think red files are massive, that's where we could come right back here into our same Learn tools. And remember what I was saying, 8K at 9:1. Okay, let's just plug that in. That could be our Ranger, or maybe the helium camera like I own. And you were saying like 9:1. Notice that data rate there, guys and gals. That's 140 megabytes per second. That is on par with your 4K 10-bit, 12-bit ProRes. And I'm doing 8K or 35 megapixels to your 4K 9 megapixel video. Mine's raw. Typically, if you're shooting ProRes, that's not raw. That's by definition a flattened codec. I'm doing 16-bit raw, and you could maybe come to something like 14:1. That's less than 100 megabytes. Now, not everyone is shooting 8K. Remember, we were talking about maybe shooting 6K, and you could change your resolution to something like 6K, and you're really going to like this for anyone that's trying to be very efficient. That is less than 60 megabytes per second there for 6K raw, all of that from a camera system there that is saving you not only when you're out there on set, but on post-end as well when you're coming back and not having to buy tons and tons of hard drives. And that is something here that I do want to really hammer home with Red, is you do have that efficiency to be shooting raw, have that look, that creative choice to shoot the lenses you want, and then have a manageable file size to either go to the largest screen in the world. Like we said, Komodo is currently being shot on the new Suicide Squad, the brand new Jurassic World, several on-set movies and TV shows, and really it's there because it is a camera that can get into a very tight spot. But for you or I, it might be our very first Red camera that allows us to get to that next step or that next job or that next client. And thank you for the poll, and perfect example here. You're now seeing Stranger Things, Peaky Blinders, Nurse Ratched, Narcos, Mindhunter, some of the great shows that are shot on Red, and all of those have a very distinct look. And I'd love to hear what some of your favorite shows are. And they don't necessarily have to be the shows that are shot on Red. We definitely love to encourage anyone to be creative here with any camera system you have. Just know that with Komodo, I now don't have to be limited to my creativity, and I can now shoot with a global shutter, a Red camera system, something that is lightweight and very flexible. And I do want to pause briefly here and take a quick sip of water as we look at some of the questions. And I'm going to plug the SDI screen back in, and I want to show a feature here, and I mentioned it a couple times in the stream, but sometimes just you need to see it to really have it hit home. Now, Komodo does have phase detection autofocus, not face like the thing I'm touching, phase detection autofocus. And this is something that is sensor based. So I would not expect to see this go reverse or go backwards on any of our previous sensors. This is something that is very unique to Komodo. Now notice I'm going to come over here to my app, and once again it is still live here as I go ahead and put my fingers in front of the screen, and notice that I can come over here and start autofocus, and I've just engaged it from the app, not touching the camera, because I do have an electronic lens that's using autofocus. I can also come over here and then move my focus to maybe tap, tap, tap right over there in the upper right-hand corner, and do notice that my focus confirm box did change. And I'll switch over to my other view here to give you guys a slightly better view of this. And I'm seeing here the SDI screen here at the top. the LCD that's built here in the camera, and then if I insert it right over here, the app that is showing you that is still live streaming. Now I'm going to manually just change the focus here and show you that our focus is off. But if I come over here, let's go ahead and use the app, and no cheating over here. I'm going to use the app, and we'll go over here and trigger autofocus, and you're now seeing autofocus be triggered from the app wirelessly. You're seeing phase detection, confirm it right here on the LCD, and if I wanted to, I could make the LCD out or the SDI out have a clean image, because maybe I don't want them to see all of that information. And now I have a simple overlay there or a more advanced overlay. And once again, that is all available on the Komodo camera system with the RED Control app. And once again, I do like to mount that phone, and you could also go ahead and mount the phone and keep your focus right over here. And now I'm focusing manually, so I don't have to worry about maybe errantly walking through and letting autofocus engage when I don't want it to. Really, really great functionality there, all with Komodo. And if I switch that back to my other camera here, hopefully everyone is still seeing and hearing. Compression affect the quality. Is it lossless? Vegan Delight, you've been asking some great questions here. And remember, I showed you red.com. There is our Learn section. There is also that Red Solitary series where I showed you. I did one on Red Code. Now, Red Code is Red's form of proprietary compression, and this is something that is visually lossless. Now, we do have sweet spots and recommendations, and that's where I would say with Komodo, it's been optimized and simplified. So maybe if you're new to Red, you don't have to deal with our compression, which was maybe a lot of options, depending on if you were new to our system. So once again, with Komodo, it is 16-bit RAW. You do have 3 options: Red Code HQ, MQ, and LQ. I like to think of it as high quality, medium quality, and low quality. And really high quality should be used for your big screen deliverables, your visual effect shots, anything like this book over here where I did want to go ahead and do stills, right? Something that is high quality and maybe you did want to punch in. Now that would be high quality, right around 280 megabytes per second. If I did do MQ, MQ would be medium quality, and that would be good for like your streaming deliverables, maybe something for a 4K show, a 4K YouTube show, maybe something where you weren't zooming in on my face and doing visual effects or high-end detail. But once again, not something where you would notice that, especially if you're shooting 6K and then delivering in 4K or 2K. Now, if we're delivering it in 1080 because maybe this is a buddy's wedding and they didn't have a whole lot of budget, or maybe we're going to, and once again, I'm just saying there's options. You know, I'd love to be able to shoot low quality for maybe I thought I had 2 cards and I only have 1 card, right? LQ allows me to still shoot RAW and not have to use the baked-in ProRes codec, where I'm going to be limited when not have as much flexible options. So great question on the quality there, and keep them coming there with the questions. Let me see if I have another slide to show you there on the image quality there. All right, I'm going to show you guys my desktop one more time here, and I think this is a good one to go ahead and share with everyone when it comes about Red Code. And share your screen here. Share. And what you're looking at here is what a lot of customers ask for sometimes. I want it raw, and I want it raw uncompressed. Now, I understand that because other camera manufacturers will do uncompressed, but do know uncompressed raw can lead to very large file sizes. Phase 1, medium format, large camera systems that do uncompressed raw, I'm looking in your direction, right? That will take your ½ terabyte card and fill it up in less than 2 minutes. Now, I don't want to shoot 8K uncompressed or 6K uncompressed. I would rather maybe do MQ or HQ or LQ. And what that allows me to do is what you're seeing here is shoot like 8K at 5:1. 8K at 5:1 could also be comparable to maybe Komodo at either that HQ or MQ setting. Essentially, remember, a Komodo is right around 280 megabytes per second. And notice that you'd be able to still shoot raw, but you're now not filling up that card in 2 minutes. You now have 30 minutes on the card. Now, 30 minutes worked for me, but maybe not for you. So we could go ahead and maybe go to LQ or MQ and get maybe 45 minutes, an hour on that card. And here we are shooting just under an hour, shooting 8:1. And notice that that is still 16-bit RAW. And when you want to kind of see some comparable differences, remember 8-bit RAW, 10-bit RAW, 12-bit RAW, not all RAW is created equal. And when you look at this in your final deliverable, you have less posterization or less banding within your shot with something that comes from a 16-bit RAW source. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. It still has to come down to file size and data rates. But remember, if we wanted to shoot with RED, know that you have the ability to shoot all the way up to 8K or 6K. And notice that our RAW is actually a lot more efficient when you compare that with some of the other IMAX cameras or some of the high pedigree cameras that are in the space. Notice this is our 8K Monstro, but this could easily be our 8K Helium, which we do offer in an educational kit as well for any of our students and faculty. Notice you could be shooting 16-bit RAW at IMAX quality, and all of that being hundreds, if not thousands of terabytes less than some of those other cameras, which aren't shooting quite 8K resolution and aren't maybe necessarily giving you all of those same flexible lens options. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the share and see if we have any questions here. Great question. If someone is looking for RED examples from Komodo, I know they're not necessarily on red.com just yet, but you can always email me at solitaryseries@red.com. Let them know you participated in the Photocom stream, and what we can go ahead and do is share with you some of the images. They'll probably be some of the same ones you see on red.com. And once again, that is one of the benefits of working with us. We're more than happy to have one of those one-on-one conversations with you. And usually we'd love to be there and sharing in the participation with Rick and Zach and everyone there. And hopefully we can do so in 2021. Still hopeful for it. All right. Now, if there's any other questions, let's go ahead and go back to the poll. Mindhunter, Stranger Things, and Peaky Blinders. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for their feedback on the poll. I do want to point out that Stranger Things and Peaky Blinders both were shot on our Monstro sensor, but definitely one of our gorgeous, gorgeous cameras. And if you looked, all of this footage you're seeing over here to the left, that was from one of our DSMC2 Monstro cameras. Mindhunter was actually shot on the Dragon sensor and Helium as well. And the nice thing about both of those sensors is you can just, with our DSMC2 Ranger camera systems, you can choose a sensor, maybe the Gemini sensor, which offers dual sensitivity and better work with our anamorphic lenses, or maybe you have full frame lenses and you need to utilize the Monstro. But notice that that same Monstro can also shoot in 6K, which would be Super 35 resolution, and you'd still get all the benefit of using the Monstro sensor. You just wouldn't be using the full sensor. You would be essentially windowing down in resolution and shooting right around 6K if you did want to hit Super 35 with the Monstro. And remember, DSMC, so for still photographers that are getting motion deliverable requests, whether it's for social media, what we're doing here, let's see if I can hit record. Notice I just hit record on this camera over here. If I wanted to, I can, that little clickety click right there is essentially my ability to mark frames and my ability to essentially let my talent know that I've captured a frame. But it's also something where I'm currently helping my fiance do a ad campaign for an Amazon shoot where she needs to do stop motion. What I just showed you there was raw, and really if I come over here and hit playback, I'm going to show you that here behind the screen behind me, what you're going to see here is my little hand jive that I did right here on camera. And I can scroll through the footage here and watch what I'm going to go ahead and do here. I'm going to essentially take the footage and make it darker or make it brighter. And remember, I don't even have to make it go clickety click, because with a DSMC camera, a Komodo, a Ranger, essentially every frame can be a raw still. It's just much smaller than most of your still cameras are actually shooting. The raw footage is actually smaller than the video that we're shooting with some of these phones that are in our cameras or in our pockets. And now we're doing it with, once again, the ability to have something that's very light, very handheld, and yeah, much more accessible here. So great offering here from Red, and I'm really excited for everyone to get hands-on with this, including Zach and Rick. I know they love their camera systems here, and I hope we can get them shooting on the Komodo here in the near future. Also, just for cool things like, hey, I know we need to be able to go out and do the jobs, but we also need to let everyone know what we're doing and market as well. So in the past, I used to take my camera out and take a photo of what I was doing for BTS, or heaven forbid, do one of these and do something for Instagram. But do know with Komodo, notice I can come right over here to the creative tab, and I don't want to oversimplify it. Notice that I could come back over here, turn on that black and white LUT or the film LUT, or the one that both Matthew and I coordinated before the shoot, and maybe we forgot which one it was. I can take a quick snapshot, and that's not me having to take my phone and take a glary photo of my screen. That's saved directly to my camera roll. Seems pretty small, but maybe for the script advisor, maybe for the colorist, maybe for the DIT, whoever it is, the assistant director that needs to know, was that the correct look? Yes, I don't even have to screenshot my phone because I saved it to my camera roll. And if we do a little bit of coordination beforehand, that can be my quick little lookbook by the end of the day of what shot we did, and maybe match the framing that we did previously. You can also come over and load custom frame guides or presets. And in one of those solitary series that my associate Johnny did called Red Control, he showed you how you could upload custom PNGs. So maybe you have a frame guide, a look, a shot you're trying to recreate. I really like this because I could take a classic shot, overlay it on a current setting, and then be able to match that. So I have something that's a good visual representation before I take the shot, all via the app. And once again, no additional cost. And you can find it right now in the App Store as well as the Android store as well. How are we doing on time, Rick and Matt? Yeah, I can talk about grabbing stills. Remember, the camera that I'm holding up right here, this is one of our DSMC2 Scarlett Ws. This was one of our second generation DSMC cameras, or digital still motion cameras. Right off camera here to my left, or the camera that I'm pointing at, those are both DSMC2 cameras, and I don't want to pivot the shot, but essentially it's one of these but black right there and right here to my left. I have a handle or a trigger just like any other photographer does, and as I hit record, I'm both recording video, and actually let me give you a slightly better view here behind me. So watch the screen here behind me. I'm gonna go menu, monitoring, monitor. I'm gonna give you what I would probably never show a client, which is all of my different menus, right? And so if we look behind me now, give me 1 second here. Menu, monitoring, monitors, HDMI. And I hit the wrong button there. That's always the fun of trying to do this live. Give me 1 second here. And I think we should have it. And if that doesn't work, the good old-fashioned plug it in, plug it back in. Well, maybe it doesn't like me. And hey, look, it came back. All right. So what you're seeing here is both frame rates, ISO, aperture, color temperature, shutter, resolution, and red code. You can also see levels, and you can see that I am recording audio as well. So this is motion, but I can come over here and initiate a record. And before I hit record, watch that upper right-hand corner. What you're essentially going to see is a yellow tally. Now, for anyone that shoots surfing, non-scripted TV, wildlife, something that you just have multiple takes but you want to limit it, what I just showed you there is something pretty game-changing. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stick my hand in the shot, and this isn't the right hand gesture that I'm trying to get, and I keep telling the talent to give me the hand gesture I need, and finally they get it, and oh, that was the hand gesture, but I missed it because my hand was over here. No, I didn't miss it because it's actually pre-record. I just hit record now. You can see that button went to R. And if I wanted to make sure that no one missed it, I can actually come back in here and flag, and make sure that no one missed it and flag the stills. Now watch what I'm doing right here behind me. I'm going back over here into playback. And remember, my hand was over here doing a shaka when this happened. If I go back over here into playback, what you're going to actually see is the video. And remember, I wasn't recording when that happened, but because of pre-record, I was able to keep my framing, keep my composure, and then the whale breached, or the action happened, or she said I do, and then we had that perfect micro expression happen, and I captured it because of pre-record. Now, every single frame can be a magazine quality still, and if you don't believe me, the poll we just answered, Mind Hunters. If anyone traveled to LA in the last year or so, you might have seen a bunch of billboards that were up on the freeway. They were billboards of scenes from Mindhunter, and those weren't photographers that were on set where you had essentially 2 cameras and 2 crews competing. No, those are, I don't want to use the term frame grab, but essentially, as you hear me hit record, I don't have to do this little clickety click, but notice I just went back into recording. I initiated pre-record, and I'm going to make it go, that shutter sound. I don't have to make it do that, but essentially every time it's recording, any one of those is a 16-bit raw frame. The difference is my raw frames, there's more of them, up to 60 a second and 8K, and each one of those raw frames might only be about 5 megabytes, 5 to 12 megabytes, and that is much smaller raw than all of the other cameras raw. And it's, when you want to talk about quality, then it's just a matter of what lens are you using, how good is your focus, and how good you are getting the shot. And really, that's where I challenge you. And I've seen some of the shots from PhotoCon, and I know they're exceptional. Now, the nice thing about Komodo is we now have a global shutter. So if I do want to go handheld, I now have that ability to have that very light rig. And if I go ahead and spin this over here, do remember that I have now ND. Oops, no one wants to look up my nose there. But do notice, let's see if I can give you somewhat of a shot there. Here, maybe we'll do something like that. Do notice that, hey, if that's a little bright, I'm now adding ND or darkening my shot. And that's all because of this little built-in neutral density that's in the RF to EF Canon mount. Very flexible system there. And notice that did not change my lens direction or diameter or distance. So really nice if I have any other motors or gimbals in there. It's not throwing off my balance as I need to add something to the front of the camera. Also nice in a COVID world where we're really trying to limit the amount of people on set. I don't necessarily have to have a photography crew and a video crew. You could essentially just have one crew and do the job for both. Now, I'm not advocating that videographers take photographers' jobs or both, but now we just have the efficiency to have multiple incomes from maybe the same job, or you have the ability to give your clients a whole new deliverable that maybe they previously didn't get. So really flexible options, and once again, a lighter, more efficient all-in-one camera system here. And I want to thank you all for letting us talk about the Komodo system. Oops. This is my lightweight Rode microphone, and I just brought it up because I wanted to make sure it didn't click off here. But this is actually something that I'll leave right here on the side of the camera, and you can see I have the lavalier mic right there. Or maybe I'll take a directional mic like a Deity, a Rode, a shotgun mic, and that is a great way to get 3.5 audio, line or mic level, directly out of the camera. If you do need something like full-size XLRs, do you know can multiple devices connect to the Komodo Wi-Fi at the same time? Great question. Thank you for asking that. For the most part, this is where divisions of labor come in, and I would probably say, hey, Matt, I want you to monitor maybe the AC controller, be my camera assistant. I'd maybe say, Rick, I want you to be my focus puller. I wouldn't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen, if I can use that expression. But notice right now, I have one app going, and the ND looks pretty dark over here. And if we want let me try and make this a little bit cleaner for you guys and gals. So that's going to go back to clean. That's going to get a little bit brighter. And let me switch the cameras one more time for you here. Thank you for the question here. Multiple devices connect to the Komodo. And notice right now, I have the SDI screen, the LCD screen. This I can use as control. With a small HD Komodo screen, I can actually do touch control with a third-party touchscreen. And then right now, you can see this is live, right? I'm now going to open up another device, which is my Android-based hydrogen phone here. And off camera here, just because I can't fit all of that in, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just initiate a rescan. Notice there's the Komodo right there. Now, once again, don't try and do the same stuff, but this is where I could say, we'll let it go ahead there and connect. And I do want to point out that this Wi-Fi that I'm on and connecting all these devices is the same one that I'm live streaming with you now. Probably not what I'd hope to do on set. I usually try and be in airplane mode, but notice I'm seeing that on all the screens. I would say maybe use this one to be your focus puller, and then maybe this one could be your iris. And this is where it gets really fun, because we can go ahead and say, okay, there is the mark. Let's mark right there. And then at the beginning of the shot, I want to be right there. And I want that rack to go in. Let's see if I can do this. I'm going to try and do this one in 5 seconds. And over here, I'm going to start an iris pull.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you've all had a really good time. We really enjoyed James's wealth of information. Fascinating to see what you can do with video. And obviously, the different sizes in those cameras is kind of staggering. As a still photographer, I lust after those, to be able to think that we could actually be shooting video and pulling the stills like that we would really want in the size quality. So James, we want to thank you for an exceptionally good, detailed event. It was you're very detail oriented, and we enjoyed it. I think the fact that you can use your remote or your phone or your smartphone to be able to do a lot of the controls is genius. And I'm sure that that's going to be really well received in our community. Folks, I want to thank everybody who's been to all of our workshops for the last couple of days. I hope you've had a good time. These are difficult times for everybody. And I think the fact that our sponsors came through at a time like this to bring us really quality events is fantastic. So I want to thank each one of our sponsors. And if James can hear me, I would love to see just give me a thumbs up, James, and I'd be a happy camper. So I just
test. Yeah. I think I'm back.
Hi, James. If you give me a thumbs up, I know you can see me. I'm just telling you that you did a great job, James. Aloha. James can't hear me for some reason right now, but he's giving me a good man, James. Good man, James. I want to thank everybody. We've had a great time. Coming up next is another really special photographer in a lot of ways. He is special. And it's Zach Noel. Zach is now an explorer of light with Canon. One of the very few young ones that are in the Canon group today, and it's a great honor to bring him in as our next speaker. If you haven't already registered, please go online, click into register, you'll get a link and you can come and join us, and we'd love to hear from you. So for a few moments, it'll be at 6 o'clock Hawaii time. So just for a few moments, we'll cut out. James, again, give me a thumbs up. I know you can't hear me. Now give me one of these, and we're done. See ya. Thank you very much. Over and out to all.